In the God Emperor's name, you've hacked and slashed your way to level 30 on your Zealot, and now you're left staring back at the wake of your destruction, wondering what to purge next. Hey there friends, it's Codiak here, and welcome back to Legacy Gaming. Today we're diving into the Zealot Preacher and breaking down our experimental build we like to call Thunderstruck. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you already know the basics of the class, but if you don't, I strongly recommend you check out our Ultimate Starter Class Guide already posted on the channel. A few things have changed since launch, but 95% of that video still holds up today. Darktide is first and foremost a team-based game. What we outline today will certainly benefit your team, but it's not focused on optimizing that perfect team comp or even min-maxing into the perfect scenario. If it's fun, we want to share it. In this build, we're going to review a base set of skill choices, but focus more on a melee weapon selection that caters to two distinct playstyles. In one, you'll tear through groups of enemies using the fast-paced action of the Devil's Claw Sword, and in the other, you'll embrace the Thunder Hammer to absolutely annihilate single targets. Both have their unique place in an almost identical build, and both leave you feeling like you could take on the toughest of enemies on your own, but please, just stay with your team. Since both weapons utilize the same build, let's first go through our feats. Now remember, the role of the Zealot is to be up front and center. Your core utility is toughness regen and uptime on both yourself and your team. We also need to look at each feat, not for its initial face value, but thinking forward to how often that perk will activate. Some feats definitely seem better than others on paper, but are worthless if you're never in a situation to activate that perk. With that in mind, here were our choices. In Tier 1, we choose Purify in Blood. If you're playing the Zealot correctly, the majority of your kills will be melee. If you're out of range and you need to pull out your gun, chances are your toughness isn't being affected. So here, we're going to amp up our toughness replenishment by 50% on melee kill, which you should be doing almost exclusively anyways. In the second tier, we're picking up Punishment, which gives us up to 5 stacks of plus 30% impact after hitting 3 or more enemies. Impact increases your stagger power, allowing you to knock enemies backwards. At max stacks, you gain Uninterruptible, a buff that prevents any of your attacks from being interrupted, making your hits unstoppable for those 5 seconds. This is absolutely something to embrace, as your positioning in melee isn't always perfect, and this can really allow you to continue to mow through enemies regardless of what's in front of you. The third tier leaves us looking at the situation and asking how often we'll be triggering the skill. Because two of the feats deal with situational triggers, we're simply going to pick Benediction, which is an always active plus 15% toughness damage reduction to our allies in Coherency. Is it perfect in all situations? No, but we're making this a simple and easy choice that has the most uptime benefit. Thy Wrath Be Swift will be our fourth tier choice. The logic here is again situational. You should always be up front, which means the chance of you taking damage is pretty good. So this feeds right into the perk and should constantly net you plus 20% to your movement speed. The fact that you also no longer get stunned by melee attacks is the standout choice here, especially when factoring in things like reviving teammates, item pickup, and overall, it's one less thing you have to think about while being in the heat of the action. In Tier 5, we're picking up something that again plays perfectly and easily into a melee playstyle. Rising Conviction provides us with plus 4% damage for 5 seconds on hit, maxing out at 5 stacks. Yes, a plus 20% damage buff. It's literally that simple. Just swing and hit enemies for an extra 20% for 5 seconds. At max stats, that max second timer is reset every time you hit another enemy within the 5 seconds, so this is almost always up, which is phenomenal. Finally, with Swordplay, we want Fury of the Faithful to add to the already swift action of the sword. You'll only be able to benefit from this when you use your ability Chastise the Wicked, but you'll gain plus 20% attack speed when doing so. With the crit and toughness perk of Chastise the Wicked, this additional speed can come in handy when running down groups. You'll see you can swiftly cut through mobs in most situations, and this is especially handy when coming to the aid of an ally that's in a sticky situation. With our feats locked in, let's take a look at the two weapons that make the build and take it in different directions. First up is the Devil's Claw Sword. This is a fast-action, crowd control-focused weapon. You'll utilize the cleave and mobility of the sword to handle large groups of enemies, and even keep small groups or single targets at bay. This complements our build nicely, as it will almost always be triggering our Tier 2 feat as we're constantly cleaving. Paired with the movement perk from tier 4 and the damage buff from tier 5, you're a heretic slicing, mob pushing, buff uptime machine. We recommend engaging groups starting with Chastise the Wicked. This allows you to close the gap quickly and equips you with an instant crit and damage modifier. With the additional damage modifiers and attack speed from our feats, you'll quickly clear large groups and open up opportunities for your team to get into position and take on other objectives. Don't shy away from these frontline opportunities, but remember, make sure you're not rushing out of coherency range. You're a killing machine, but keeping that coherency buff is something you need to pay close attention to, especially in the higher difficulties. As you enhance and modify your sword through the crafting system, which will eventually be fully unlocked, look for modifiers that specifically benefit melee damage, but feel free to play around with these for your own flavor. For traits, we really like Rampage or Savage Sweeps, as they both take advantage of your already high cleave and damage buffs. Finally, let's pivot and talk about the appropriately named Thunderhammer. It does what you probably already assume it does, and does it damn well. You have your standard light and heavy attacks, but where it shines is the special ability. You quite literally charge your hammer with crackling energy, which adds a ferocious punch when using any attack after it's charged up. What once took 10 hits to kill an elite now only takes potentially 4, and also adds a nice stagger component. You'll use this to incredibly great effect when focusing a heavily armored enemy, such as a Crusher or Bulwark. Now let's add your class ability into the mix, Chastise the Wicked. When activated, you charge forward. The damage of your next melee attack is increased by 25%, and is a guaranteed critical hit. Combine all of that with the charged hammer, and you have a recipe for damage that guarantees to ruin the weekend of any enemy you come in contact with. Let's briefly look back at our tier 6 feats. If you choose Purge the Wicked, you now get 2 charges of your class ability, which gives you another opportunity to queue up this elite killer combo. The recipe here is to charge your weapon, wind up for a heavy attack, and use your class ability to close the gap. Timing is the key here, and when everything lines up, you reach your target and unleash a deadly attack. This is a highly effective but highly skill-based ability combo that, when done right, feels incredible. We had a lot of fun with this build in the offline meat grinder, but what does this look like in practice? Well, it's still great, but it's all about timing. The important thing to remember, you're no longer a sword-wielding, button-mashing machine, but now have a single-target powerhouse. You have to understand your positioning and timing perfectly to reap the full benefits of this weapon. While you do still have some room-clearing power, the hammer has such a wide swing radius, you may find yourself unintentionally hitting an enemy just out of view, completely missing your intended target, and thus wasting your single-target ramp-up. Finally, for modifiers, we recommend +% to melee damage to elites and flak armored enemies, and we really like Skull Crusher to add damage to any staggered enemies, and Thunderstrike, which adds +% impact if already staggered. This applies 2 debuffs on the enemy, which should always be staggered by your initial charged Thunder hit. A real solid combo. Before we wrap up this video, let's touch briefly on ranged weapons. Your selection will be heavily preference-based, but we thoroughly enjoy the Lasgun. Its range and pinpoint accuracy complement the build nicely and allow you to pick off that straggling enemy and execute long-range strategic plays such as barrel explosions to clear out those large groups of heretics, all while boasting high ammo reserves. We do recommend keeping something with a longer range, such as a Lasgun, versus something like a flamethrower or shotgun, as this distinctly rounds out the playstyle, giving you more situational options between close and long range. Overall, this build has been super fun to play and has proven sustainable even as we progress through the higher difficulties. Let's sum things up quickly so we have a great snapshot of both the pros and cons of the build. The build strengths include incredible single and multi-target damage, high toughness damage reduction and regeneration, increased impact and movement speed, and enemy melee attacks no longer stun you. In terms of drawbacks to the build, you have to consider the potential to get swarmed. You need constant situational awareness being so close to the action. The hammer also has a tendency to miss intended targets due to its large swing radius, and just how easy it is to move out of coherency with speed and ability buffs is a real concern. There you have it, folks, our Thunderstruck build for the Zealot Preacher. Be it with the high action combat of the Devil's Claw or the commanding crack of the Thunderhammer, we hope you found this build helpful in your mission to purge heretics in the God Emperor's name. If you enjoyed this build guide, let us know what you think. And as always, feel free to share your thoughts. If you change anything, let us know why. While you're at it, suggest which class we should build out next. While you're down there, feel free to drop a like and of course consider subscribing. We've got more Darktide content planned, and we'd love to have you back on the channel. Finally, if you do want to support Legacy Gaming even more, how about picking up a piece of brand new Legacy Gaming merch? Our first ever collection is available to buy right now on our website at legacygaming.gg/shop. You can pick up a shirt, hoodie, or hat, and all proceeds go back into helping build our channel. There's even some cool charity designs that help fuel our Leave a Legacy initiative, so go check them out. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.